All right, friends. So let's get started with the next keynote, so we can stay on time and track, and we'll allow people to stream in as they come in. But we have heard some amazing. We had some amazing conversations, dialogues, ranging from since yesterday about AI and then for Latin America, large language models for all. We've had some of the former PhD students of Notre Dame talking about where they are now. They graduated about 10 or 15 years from now ago. And it was such a gift of their time to come back to the alma mater, about 10 of them, and share with you where they are, what they are doing, and where they are headed. Then we had an amazing evening of opening ceremony with some of the some great leaders amongst us sharing their findings, followed by the keynote by Ascension. So there's a lot that happened yesterday itself. And then today morning, we kicked off with an awesome paired keynote by Accenture, where both Dale and Arnab really hit home a point I thought was very fascinating, where start with the business realization of AI. Don't just get into AI for the sake of doing AI, unless you can attach it to a real business outcome. Start from there and then build up your data stack, and responsible AI gets woven in, and how you operationalize gets woven in. So that was very interesting. And then we had a panel discussion on AI and sustainability, and parallel tracks on healthcare. And now we are all gathered together again to have one of my good friends and real a distinctive academician and world-renowned scholar who's going to talk to us about AI, voting, and democracy. And this is an issue that at Notre Dame we think about. We have a strategic initiative on data, AI, and computing, as I shared yesterday, as well as an initiative on democracy. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Juan Gilbert who's the Andrew Banks Family Preeminence Endowed Professor, the University of Florida Distinguished Professor, and also the chair of Computer and Information Science and Engineering Department at the University of Florida. We will have to ask him how he does it all, right? And he directs the Impactful Computing for Social Good Lab at Florida. And he is one of the most highly decorated computer scientists in the nation. His influence has been recognized at the highest level. He was named the laureate of the National Medal of Technology and Innovation by President Biden, who also appointed him to the prestigious National Science Board in 2024. He's a fellow of Association for Computing Machinery, ACM, a fellow of and a member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, a fellow of the National Academy of Inventors, among many, many honors. So Juan, it's definitely a joy to have you here. And he also has several friends here at Notre Dame, including I'm looking at Ron. So he was delighted to join us. I at first thought he's delighted to join us for Rise AI, but then I found he's actually more looking forward to seeing his buddy Ron here as well. So, but thank you so much, Juan, for joining us, taking your time. And on ACM, I would also like to make an announcement. We have Sean Pigeon here, who's the executive publisher with ACM. All the abstracts that have been accepted to the conference, and ACM has agreed that we will have a rolling Rise AI editors collection at ACM AI Letters. So if you submitted your abstracts, we will invite you, the program chairs will invite you to submit your papers to the AI Letters Journal that ACM has launched, and no bias. I'm one of the editors in chief of that. But you will have the Rise AI rolling collection for ACM AI Letters. So I'm really pleased to announce, and thank you, Sean, for making the trip to joining us. With that, Juan, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Nitesh. So I've been working in this field since the year 2000 and working with elections technology. And today I'm going to actually reveal for the first time public a new innovation coming out of the lab. Whenever I talk about these things, it gets very engaging. I welcome interaction. All questions and comments are welcome. So don't hesitate, okay? Because we learn from that. It's healthy to have those kind of discussions. And I think sometimes the unexpected is where we find those little gold nuggets of good innovation. Okay, without further ado, so what I'm gonna do is tell you about shaping the future of voting technology, innovations that have come out of the lab, and how we've actually impacted voting, in particular in the United States. And I'm not exaggerating. We've changed voting in this country through our lab, and you'll see that. So, some of the things I'm going to talk about as we see AI and technology becoming more prevalent, pervasive in society. What is the future of technology and voting in general? Will people ever be able to vote online? And if not, why? What about the long lines for voting? Can technology eliminate them? I want to talk about that and maybe get into it, but I don't know if I have a lot of time. But I can make a comment on that. And then voter ID. That's been an issue of late in this country in particular. And can technology and AI help? Again, we'll see how this goes because it can get very conversational. I want to say it again. I welcome the questions in the conversation. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at some technologies that come out of the lab and discuss the questions along the way. And so I'll begin with just a little background. Currently, state of the art are what's called direct recording machines, DREs. These are machines that are basic computers with a touch screen, allows you to touch it. You mark your ballot, and there have been some issues with these, a lot of politics around them. I won't go into detail. You could see some of the headlines there, but ballot design is one of those issues, and accessibility. But we'll talk a little bit more about that. Background next, optical scan. Optical scan is something we use in the country, and you see it around the world. Essentially, you have a paper ballot, you mark it, you scan it in an optical scanner. Now, this technology is seems and thought to have been very secure, but it has some issues recognizing stray marks, subjectivity in recounts, and did it count your vote as you recorded it? And then there's some issues around the number of ballots that are actually scanned or not scanned. So, little background, Minnesota. When we talk about optical scans, I always go back to 2008 because optical scans were thought to be that's the way we should vote. And we had a huge issue in Minnesota in 2008. And I'm just going to demonstrate the issue. Here's an optical scan ballot. These are real ballots, by the way. You look at this ballot and you say, well, who did this person vote for? The optical scan would say there was no vote, but a human looks at it and say, oh, they voted for Norm Coleman. I don't know. Mm. What about this? Looks like they wrote the word yes in the oval or something. Will the optical scan pick that up? Self-explanatory. And here's one. So, so you look at these ballots, could how they're interpreted in the scanner. If we applied AI behind this, could AI even interpret these? And how would it? What model would you feed it to learn how to do these kind of things? Humans look at this and you could debate who they want to vote for. This is this is reality. And again, these are real ballots. I didn't make these up. These were actual ballots that were taken from that election. So, with that introduction, let me tell you about what we've did. We've created a technology called Prime 3, stands for Premier Third Generation Voting System. When we created it, it's open source. The idea was to create a voting machine that was usable, accessible, and secure. And it was one machine that everyone could vote on. And we designed it with a universal design in mind. One machine, everybody votes on that machine, independent of your ability or disability. So we made it where it had touch capability, and we actually put voice in it where you could speak to it. Now, speaking to it was not saying who you would vote for. So in the previous example, you wouldn't say Al Franken. It would say to vote for Al Franken, say vote. And you can respond by saying vote or blow into the microphone. We did that because guess what happens? Now I'm immediately language independent. So with this technology, we didn't realize it, but if you can't see, if you can't hear, if you can't read, if you don't have arms, you could vote on the same machine as anyone else. This came with an extra benefit because if everyone's voting on the same machine, it had a security benefit, which is that if I'm going to deceive you, now I have to worry about deceiving people with other abilities or disabilities as well. So, from a security perspective, when we designed it, we actually went old school and we designed this machine. It's a stateless machine. It has no hard drive. It runs off bootable Blu-ray, read only. So you write it, it boots, and it cannot be written to again. And I actually had the opportunity to talk to colleagues in security who worked in voting and who had demonstrated hacks of voting machines. And I offered to send them the machine and said, I want you to hack it so that it will flip votes. And then I want to see if we can actually, if it persists and if you can send it to me and if we can find it. To date, no one's taken my offer. What this machine does, it prints a voter verified paper ballot, voter verified ballot. So you mark your ballot and then it prints. And here's a sample of that ballot. I'm just showing you what's the NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology. They create a standard ballot for testing voting systems, and this is it. Now, if you notice, each contest, it only prints the contest and who you selected. And I have a picture there because we actually could put pictures on the ballot, which we're helping in an accessibility way as well. By printing this way, it eliminated ambiguity about whom you voted for, and it was more precise. So you print the ballot, that ballot goes in a ballot box, and then we had a scanner, which we would scan it, and we scan it using optical character recognition, but we added our own spin on that, and we call it IOCR, informed optical character recognition. So think of it like, in AI, we use a language model to build the model. We use the ballot somewhat as a language model to build the OCR recognition. Yes.
Yeah, I can ask.
Yeah, go ahead.
So your machine, your system is only a voting mechanism and it doesn't store any data about the vote. You get the ballot out, you independently verify and it goes through the old the
A- Absolutely.
so you're not changing the counting process, you're changing the voting mechanism.
We changed the voting mechanism and right, and we changed the way the votes are tallied with this optical character IOCR. And then there was this technology, risk limiting audits is Stark invented this. It's a way to confirm that it is actually the machine is accurate. So we created this, and our IOCR is extremely accurate. We tested this, and that is part of our process. So yes, essentially, not essentially, but you're right. The voting machine has no way to store anything. Again, it's stateless. It has no hard drive. Yes. The ballot definition and the actual software, the operating system, we could tech out if you want. It's a Linux bootable disk, and it's running just our software. It boots up and allows you to vote and prints. And I'll show you a little bit more about the system in a second. Okay. So with this technology, state of Wisconsin actually used it back in 2014. New Hampshire used it in 2014. This was their setup, actually. They had, as you see in this picture here, let's see, we have two. So you see a headphone, a tablet, the printer, and this thing here is a button switch, two button switch. On the right side of it, and the left side has texture. The right side is clear. So if I am a blind voter, I put on this headset and I use the clear, it says next. I go to the next thing, next thing, next thing, and I hit the texture to make a selection. And it would print. And so they use it. So they actually created and they called it One for All. They renamed this system. So they had statewide use in 2016. Ohio used a version of Prime 3, but they're using it as their remote accessible absentee system. So what they did was, in particular for blind voters, for example, they would have to register with the election office. They would actually get an email with a link to the ballot where they can mark it, print it, and mail it back in. I mean, it's cumbersome, but it works. ES&S is the nation's largest voting machine manufacturer. This is their technology called Express Vote. And this technology implements a lot of the things that we created in Prime 3. It's not stateless, to my knowledge. Prints a paper ballot. I don't like that they went a receipt side. That ballot you see, that's too small. I'm not a fan of that. But they did implement a cool aspect. One of the things we did in Prime 3 was that you could go online, fill out your ballot, and generate a QR code. And on election day, walk up to the machine, scan it, and it takes you into the review mode. You review everything, and you can print. So it's sped up voting. They actually have that in that machine. I don't know if they advertise that though. I had the opportunity to serve on a National Academy's consensus committee, securing the vote, protecting American democracy. We published this report back in 2018. The report strongly encourages audits and paper ballots. And we had a debate come up where hand marked paper ballots versus the ballot marking device. But we said you got to have a paper ballot. Why? There is no known way, given the current state of technology, to secure a digital ballot. I'm going to say it again. There is no known way, given the current state of technology, to secure a digital ballot. I don't care if you encrypt it or whatever, you can't secure it. I can manipulate it one way or another. And the manipulation, so most people think, well, if it's encrypted, how are you going to change it from Biden to Trump? It's not necessary that I got to change it to Biden to Trump. I can contaminate it so it can't be tallied. That's an effective attack. You'll see more about that kind of attack in a minute on paper ballots. So we got to have a paper ballot of some sort. The problem with the paper ballot is it's not accessible. If I'm blind, I can't manipulate a paper ballot without help. But then that says, well, we have to use a ballot marking device. But then the security folks say, well, I can hack it. And you know what I can do with that machine? I'm going to flip votes. And you'll see what that means in a second. So I pointed out issues with hand marked paper ballots. And I'm going to show you some that no one talks about these because I guess it's kind of depressing. But, but I will share it with you. Undervote hack, overvote hack, and a stray marks hack. This is the undervote hack. Often people say, I'm not going to vote in that contest. I don't really care about them. So they don't mark anything. An insider afterwards could look at that and say, ooh, I'm going to vote who I want. Takes less than 3 seconds, impossible to detect. But if you don't mark something, boom, someone could come in and mark the candidate of their choice. Impossible to detect unless you catch them doing it in the act. Overvote. Well, this person voted for Norm, but I really want Al to win, and I'm an insider. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to mark Al. That causes an overvote scenario, so guess what happens? That contest is thrown out. Norm had a vote, but I just took it away. That's an overvote hack. Again, less than 3 seconds, impossible to detect. This is what happens or can happen. So, and we already saw the stray marks from the Minnesota where people just write on the ballot. So, issues with ballot marking devices. They were using barcodes or QR code, and they were saying, well, what if the ballot text doesn't match the actual QR code that's being scanned? And then the vote flipping. That was a big deal. Would voters notice if on my ballot marking device, I mark it, but when it prints something else? So, University of Michigan did a study, and you'll see it here. In their study, Without intervention, only 40% of the participants reviewed their printed ballot at all, and only 6.6% told a poll worker something was wrong. So, what they did was they held a study, let people use a ballot marking device, and when it printed their ballot, it flipped their vote. And they wanted to see if people would notice. And this is the result. When this paper was published, it sent the country into a shock, the election community. They said, people won't notice. So, Rice University did a study. They said, well, we did the study, and our data suggests that voters can detect changes if they only attempt to do so. Well, in their study, 76% detected anomalies, indicating that voters can reliably detect it, but if they attempt to do so, yes. Well, from a statistical standpoint, it seems low. But from a human perspective, it's extremely high. And I'll tell you why. How many people does it take to show that the election has an issue? That number is very low. And I'll come back and comment on that in a second. So, Rice also said while the overall detection rate in our study experiment was 17.6%, but they noticed 76 could detect. Again, they said if they only try. So with that, we said, all right, we're going to try and fix this. We created what's called the transparent voting machine. And again, it's powered by Prime 3. So take a look. So what you're looking at is the original prototype. And you can see I'm marking a ballot and it prints right in front of me behind that screen. In order for me to continue, I actually have to touch what was just printed. Essentially, I'm attempting to turn paper into a touchscreen. So I can't continue unless I touch what was printed. If I touch outside of that, it will actually tell me I have to, touch my selection. That's what I'm doing here. And again, this video is from the original prototype. It's a little different now. You'll see another version of it. And I'm just writing in a candidate and doing some things here. But the transparent voting machine was an idea, and we made it a reality. And so the problem we're trying to address is, again, remember, vote flipping. You saw the Michigan study, the Rice study. People were very alarmed by that. And so we felt that if we design something like this, would this make an improvement? All right. So again, I'll let this one print and then I'll move on. And again, this would run in a stateless environment. So I don't know how you get it to flip votes, but just assuming you could. I didn't mention this the stateless machine. Our proposal was that the stateless machine, the physical machine, would be designed with like this, see-through. And I would use AI to actually image the before image of it. And someone made an accusation, I could then use AI to look at the image of the inside of the machine to see if anything was changed. Yes.
So how long did it take for you to be in this, like the voting books to have all this done?
It did not the amount of time it takes to vote this way is same as paper. We actually have the data on that. It's a lot. It looks like a lot and it's gonna feel like a lot in the videos. Remember, I'm shooting the video to demonstrate, so I'm actually moving slower than what would normally be. And again, remember, we have the opportunity to go online, mark a QR code, and scan it, and then just go straight review. All right. So the transparent voting machine is using our open source Prime 3. That was the prototype. We published a paper about it, but will it enable people to detect flipping votes? We did a study. Had 151 participants. I did this study coming out of COVID. Here's a picture of me conducting the study. There's a participant sitting there and in front of the machine, and I am there at a laptop, and what I'm doing is observing everything that she's doing and recording everything that's happening. Okay? So we did this study, and what happened? Drum roll. More than 40% of the participants noticed the flip but didn't say anything. How do I know that? Look at me. This is what happened. They were voting. I flip a vote and they do that. But they didn't say anything. So I noticed a physical reaction to the vote flipping. What that is, some of you may be familiar with this called the Hawthorne effect. When you do a study, you participate in a study, and you know it's a study, you behave differently than you would in reality. That's what they were doing. It was a study. I don't care. So what we did was I added a question at the end. Did you notice I changed one of your votes to determine if they actually noticed and they just weren't speaking up? Well, 6.6% detection rate in the Michigan study, and at best 40% reviewed the ballot. 17.6% overall in Rice study, okay, and 76% could detect anomalies. We had a 77% minimum overall detection rate, and only coincidentally, 6.6% did not notice and could not identify the flip. Of those that did not notice, 71% correctly identified the change when we let them know that happened. They in the review, they could identify it. So overall, I had a 93% correctly identify the change. Given the overall minimum notice rate of 77%, and that excludes the on-paper notices, it is unlikely an election could be hacked such that a hack could go unnoticed. So here's that number. Let me tell you why that matters. Here's what we noticed. The ballot I was using was the previous 2020 president election ballot, okay? And what I noticed was if I flipped a vote from Trump to Biden, for example, I had a few people want to cuss me out. So what I noticed is that if you flip the wrong thing, all it takes is one, and you get this passionate response. The power of one is big in this area as far as if something happens. So you don't need big numbers to identify something's wrong. We published a paper about it in 2021. The Hawthorne effect was important to notice. Neither Michigan nor Rice accounted for that. And it was just something I observed in collecting data, a physical response to a vote flip where they didn't speak up. So we don't know how many actually may have had that in Michigan and Rice. We don't know. Yes.
Presidential flipping. Was there a you noticed that they had much more vocal reaction?
I have the data. We didn't document it that way, but it was only that contest that they really spoke up. And you can imagine why, right? So, but yeah, they noticed with this. So, what we ended up doing? We have another version. This is the next version of it. It's not the big box. It's slim. It prints, and here's an example. If you don't touch it, so we created a transparent interactive printing interface, um, which is a new technology in itself. Has anyone adopted it? Not yet. I don't know if Tim made it. Is Tim here? No. Oh, anyway, this is a technology. We patented the technology. University of Florida owns the rights to it. We'll see where it goes. But we know we can securely get votes this way. Yes.
Second of all, I'm curious about the selection process. What, if you build a better mousetrap here in the voting ecosystem, what's the process of they selling to states? Who makes those decisions, and how are they becoming aware of this and making it?
They're becoming aware of our technology just by I'm fortunate to have a profile with the vendors. People know about us, and we're promoting this now. I think I apologize, but I'm just sharing the reality. This works, but it won't be adopted until we have a next problem. I'm sorry. They're just responsive to problems. They just I'm sorry. So I don't know that we'll have that anytime soon. Yes.
You made a claim and you've emphasized it a couple of times that there's no solution for your digital voting. And of course, the first thing that comes to mind is how to private key version and digital signature. And then you made the claim, well, you can start sort of disable those votes by manipulating. It seems like there's an analog to the self-driving car situation. It's not that the self-driving car needs to be 100% safe, just at least as safe as a human driver. So you sort of went on to mention one of the issues with paper ballots and how systemically that can be addressed. To the extent that paper ballots themselves are not possible to fully.
That is a great question. And the answer is it's a sociological answer. It's not embedded in data or anything. It's the psychology, sociology of voting, politics. To be honest, that's really what it is. Yes.
Psychology and this concern. So, how much of your results been pulled out if the choices?
Well, down and we tested this with a real ballot and down ballot were things that people didn't know about. And we flipped and they still saw it. Because remember, what I'm forcing you to do is you're touching something that just printed, that you just printed. And you can't see it here, but let me see. Yeah, I don't have a picture of one. But essentially what happens, you see the box that's around what's printed. So that would have president and vice president arrow and your selection. You see the text above it? Before that box comes up, it would say, actually, you see it in the video. I'll show a video in a second, but it will actually have the name of your selection as well. So your selection appears on the screen and in the paper as well. I do that deliberately. That's a security feature. If you're going to hack this system, which one are you going to flip? If I flip both of them, you just increase the likelihood of me seeing it. If I flip one, you're providing evidence that a hack has occurred. So, yeah, it's for us, what we've seen is if it doesn't matter to you, you still see it. That's the point. All right, let me get to the new stuff. All right, televoting. So, can we vote on the internet? The problem, again, resulting in a paper ballot, the current standard of practice is, like I mentioned in Ohio and some other states, I don't know if Indiana has this, but remote accessible voting or ballot marking. You mark your ballot, you print it, you mail it in like absentee. So we had this other idea using the transparent interactive printing interface as well. You're the first to see this publicly.
Ship mute my audio button. NIST Chrome. NIST standard ballot Google Chrome. Heading level 2. To start voting, press the start button below. Start voting button. Heading level 1. U.S. President and Vice President. Heading level 2. Vote for no more than one candidate. Heading level 3. Contest 1 of 7. Joseph Barkey and Joseph Halloran Blue Party. Adam Kramer and Greg Vuokolo Yellow Party. Daniel Court and Amy Blumhart Purple Party. Alvin Boone and James Leanne Orange Party. Alvin Boone and James Leanne Orange Party selected. Austin Liz Charlotte Marzi candidate reprint my selection Alvin Boone and James Leanne U.S. President and Vice President
Now
for
watch
frame
this. This is what
2.
I was talking about.
Your selection Alvin Boone and James Leanne for U.S. President and Vice President has printed. Press enter to continue. Heading level 1. U.S. Senate. You are currently on a heading level 1. Inside heading level 2. Vote for no more than one candidate. Heading
That's the
level
screen
3.
reader for
Contest 2 of
someone
none of
who
the
is
above
blind.
selected. Button. Group. You are currently on print my leaving frame. U.S. Senate vertical entering frame. Your selection none of the above for U.S. Senate has printed. Press enter to continue. Heading level 1. U.S. Representative. Heading level 2. Vote group. And heading level 1. Go back. Heading level 2. Type in the candidate's name. Edit text. Blank. B-U-G-S-B-U-Y. Bunny. Heading level Bugs Bunny. You are currently on a button. Print my selection Bugs Bunny. Button. U.S. Representative vertical line frame 2. Your selection Bugs Bunny for U.S. Representative has printed. Printed ballot image. Heading Charlene Franz Blue Party. Button. Heading level 1. Governor. Heading level 2. Vote for no more than one candidate. Barbara Williams Aqua Parties Print my leaving frame. Governor vertical line entering frame. Your selection Barbara Williams for governor has printed. Press enter to heading level 1. Lieutenant Governor. Print my leaving frame. Lieutenant Governor entering frame. You did not make a selection for Lieutenant Governor. Press enter to continue. Heading level 1. County Commissioners. You are previous candidates. Helen Moore Orange Party select Valerie Altman Orange Party. Print my leaving frame. County Commissioners entering frame. Your selection Valerie Altman. Helen Moore for County Commissioners has printed. Press enter to continue. Heading level 1. Proposition number 1. Heading level 3. Contest 7 of 7. Retain Robert Jones as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court? Yes, but no. Button. No selected. You are currently on a button. Unlabeled image. Yes selected. Print my selection yes. Button. Leaving frame. Proposition number 1 entering frame. Your selection yes for proposition number 1 has printed. Press enter to continue. Link. Leaving frame. Entering frame. Frame 2. You are currently on a frame. Entering frame. Heading level 1. Do you want to verify your paper ballot scan? Yes. Verify my ballot. No. Submit my ballot. Button. System settings. Voiceover off.
All right. So what you just saw there was someone voting remotely and their ballot printing in the precinct and them verifying that in real time. And after this happens, that ballot, if I want to verify it, and we could decide if they were forced to do it, but it's scanned in using our IOCR, and then a text is sent to them where they would get that scanned image, the physical scanned image, and be able to verify it and accept it on a separate device, their phone. So this technology, you just saw the demo, it is working. And from a security perspective, it has all kinds of benefits we could talk about. That is a mimic of the transparent voting machine. So that's why I was saying to you, you see how the name appeared and then it prints in the lower area as well. I've had opportunity to demo this to some accessibility communities and they like this version. Which you'll see, I won't play audio for this, but I'll just let you see what, I call this the basic version. But basically what it did, instead of verify, I think the thought was that if I verify after each one, they thought that could take longer time and I could have an error or something. This one allows you to mark the ballot fully. You can navigate all over the place and mark your ballot fully and then review it at the end. And you'll see what happens when it prints. It uses the same printing procedure, but just a different marking. So in this scenario, again, a blind voter or sighted voter, you navigate, you put in your votes, you can check them over and over, and you'll see a review area here in a second. So I'm just able to play as long as I want and do what I want. So I'm going to vote. Yeah, so go back, I change my mind, I change something, then I go to review. So these buttons allow me to go to any contest if I want and change it. But watch what happens here. I print my ballot. Now, what happens, you enter into the same interaction now where it prints. Now I got to confirm it one by one. So it's going to print them one by one and I confirm. We haven't studied this yet. Obviously, we studied the first one in the transparent voting machine. But again, we talked to a group of accessibility advocates, and they seem to like this. So I put up a test site so they're playing with them. We'll see what happens. Either way, the idea here is that we essentially we've created a voter verified paper ballot over the internet. That's what we've done. So going back to original questions, as technology becomes more pervasive, what is the future of technology and voting? I just showed you part of that. I don't know how long it's going to take. Getting at your question, usually when there's an issue, things change, but until then, they don't change really. Will people be able to vote online? Well, I kind of explained that and gave you a demonstration of what we think could be done. Now, that model of televoting, which is what we call televoting, it does require human resources on the back end, which I say is a good thing as well. But I don't know. We'll see how far that goes. Will people deal with the long lines? Well, we created another technology to address this, which is kind of being in Florida, being down the road from Orlando and Disney. Uh, Imagine you can actually go to vote, and we call this thing. We created a technology called Voter Pass, where you could print instead of getting in line, you print a pass, which is your spot in a line, and it tells you what time to come back to vote and things like that. Now, that seems kind of like obvious, but it has a very negative side effect to it that election officials don't really like. In order for us to do that, to build voter pass, meaning we can do line management and print these these paper ballots or not ballots, these passes for you. We got to do a queuing model. If anybody's familiar with that, what that tells me is I know the upper bounds for it. Meaning I have X number of machines, and if I reach certain capacity, it's impossible for me to serve everyone. Today, they don't know that. But using voter pass, we would know exactly what the bounds are. So some election precincts don't like that because they suspect they're at the bounds, but they don't want people to know they're at the bounds. So I don't know how far this would go, but we can do line management and make it work. Voter ID, controversial. We came up with an idea. I think one of the things we haven't tested this yet, but here's a proposal. Use facial recognition for voter verification. So, Nitesh, Damon does work in this area. We kind of talked about this. It's voter verification. So, in order to vote, I come up just like at the airport. Now I look into a machine and I say my name and maybe my address or just say my name. So, Nitesh, if I want to steal your identity, I got to look like you, sound like you, know your name as well. Those three parameters would increase the accuracy of verification very strongly. So I don't know how far we'll go with this, but we haven't implemented a system. We just proposed this approach as something to test, as a way to verify. Because right now, IDs are controversial in elections. People are debating voter ID. And so we think this could be something we could test. I don't know. So let me stop there and take questions. Again, thank you for having me. This work was supported by all the people you see on the screen. Um, and we're still going. So I'll take questions.
Please use the two mics there for any questions you may have for Juan.
Hi, Thanks for that. Super interesting. My question is actually about the age of voters, which you already know what I'm going to ask. Third of voters are over 65, two-thirds of voters are 45 and up. In your tests, how did that kind of agility and ability to engage, whether it's online or with the machine, impact their uptake of this?
We haven't tested online yet. We're probably going to do a spring study on the televoting. We haven't done it. But the transparent voting interface, we did go out into the community and test. What I showed you is just a demonstration of me. I was in the library on campus, but I did go out into the community and test, and we had older adults, and they were able to use it successfully. It was pretty straightforward. The thing about the interface, my students, it's funny because I'll show a demonstration of it, and people say, "Well, what's the big deal? I don't get it." That's the response we want.
Mhm.
It's so easy that people think they could have designed it, and they think it's just so transparent. That's the whole point. It's not supposed to be, "Wow, that thing is so cool." It's supposed to be, "What's the big deal?" And yes, older adults were able to use it. Interesting, they've had touchscreen experience already, and so it was a natural thing. 60 well, in our studies, we had I can't remember who the oldest was, but we had 65, I wanna say 70s. So we had a good demographic.
So you don't think you'll need like Genius Bar at the voting machines, essentially.
No, I don't think so. Well, actually, when we did going out in the wild, when Wisconsin used Prime 3 with on a touchscreen, I'll never forget. I went to watch when they were using it, and I'll never forget. I was in this community center. It was one of the precincts, and this older guy come in. He's a farmer, and he said, "I don't want to use that thing. I don't use a computer." And then I heard him say, "That's it." He had voted, and it was that was the response that meant the most to me out of
Wow.
everything.
I'm really surprised. Thank you.
I had a clarifying question.
Mhm.
So, with the Televote platform, when the screen reader was saying this printed out, was it based on the input or was it reading what was visually coming out and interpreting that and telling it back to the user?
It is not reading the visual image
Okay.
that is in the camera view. It's not doing that. What it's
So it
doing
still
is
needs that text verification that you talked about
right.
later. Okay.
That's
Okay.
why we need that
Okay.
in the event of confirmation there. I don't the screen reader doesn't do well in trying to read that image. That's why I didn't even try it.
Okay. It's like you didn't think use a model, have it interpret the image and shoot it back to the screen reader.
I could do that, but that was too much work.
Fair enough.
It was just easier. It's just easier to have the text up there, and then they can hit enter. And if they're blind, they can't see it. But then we had the second verification that came to their phone,
Okay.
and they were happy with that.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, that was one of those. "Phew, God, I don't have to do that."
I thinks I looks like Florida has come a long way from the days of the hanging chad, so kudos to you. But I was just curious your comment about you haven't been able to sell it. Like how do you try to sell it as a subscription or a price? Like what are the obstacles you're facing that more people, more states aren't interested in this?
I, ag- I'm just going to be bluntly honest. Again, it's about until you feel pain, we don't have to change. They
But hanging
just
chads seem painful.
and they changed. We have ballot marking devices. And even with the Michigan study, it wasn't enough pain to do anything different. I don't know if, in order to be honest with you, the way I think this could change is if an administration said, we're going to put up money to have innovation in elections. And that's what happened with the ballot marking devices. The United States Election Assistance Commission, you see that thing, the RAAV, there was a research alliance for accessible voting was created, and we were able to work with vendors. So it would take maybe a national initiative, or it's just hard to say. They just won't move unless there's a state out there that wants to be on the cutting edge and try and do things. But even states don't want to. That's why they have vendors. They want to go to the vendor and have the vendor manage that part of it. We'll see. I'm I'm optimistic because again, ES&S, Dominion, they know who we are and what we're doing. We'll see.
Okay, thanks.
I wish
Thank
I
you.
had a better answer. It's just sorry.
I just wanted to go back to the older adult question because 85 and older is the fastest growing population, 100 and older is the second fastest. So I think it would be really valuable to really test in the oldest of the old. And secondly, because you say with touch screens, pretty easy, and you're right, a lot of older adults know how to use touch screens. However, as you age, your hands get drier and so using a touchscreen becomes more challenging. And I've certainly seen it at Clear through the airports of when they used to have touchscreens of them failing because the hands were dry and they would have lotion and creams, etc. So I just wondered if you were thinking about how to modify for that, and as well as if they have tremors.
Yeah, even in our studies, we did see with older adults there were some tremors, and things with the tremors. Tremors actually were, I hate to say this, were helpful because they hit the screen harder. That was interesting. And the way we designed it, you can't drag and select a whole bunch of stuff. So we have some features in the interface that help against that. Uh, it's different from a phone. I think the phones kind of enculturated that population to being able to manipulate a touch screen. But this big touch screen in front of them is different. They don't interact with something like that on a normal basis. That you can't really tell, but that screen is like 27 inches, maybe. So I don't know what the perfect size would be. You're right. I think we had to study that a little more. And I'm in Florida. We have plenty of older adults. We just haven't gotten. I don't have funding to do that study yet. If I get funding, I would definitely like to do that. I mean, I'll go down to the villages and hang out there and do a study. But I think based on the observations that I've seen so far, we haven't seen problems with this interface. The colors of the screen, there's no issues with colors, color blindness. Double tapping hasn't been an issue like tremors. It's big enough, and we could actually, I didn't show it, but I can make the screen even bigger, the ability to zoom. So we just haven't seen that. And maybe it's just, knock on wood, we've been fortunate in that, but it's worked.
Thank you. Kudos for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Hi. My question, one of the big issues in voting obviously is voter turnout. And I was wondering if you had maybe done like a post, if you asked people after if this would make them more likely to vote. Because we have, here in the US, we do have a big voter turnout issue. And so if your technology would make people more likely to want to vote again or become like returning voters.
I think the the transparent voting machine, stuff like that, I don't think that makes a difference for that. But I think the voter pass would, meaning the ability for me to mark my ballot on my phone, generate a QR code, and walk up to the machine, scan it, and have it print. That that thing is engaging. I think that would bring more people.
Thank you.
One last question, please.
Okay, I have 2 questions.
Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Had a sudden choice. I'm really intrigued by this voter pass idea and the questions about older adults. I'm wondering about younger adults, youth, and I love the simplicity and the accessibility and the having no bells and whistles. I also wonder out of a curiosity about sort of like psychology, sociology of younger people interacting with government really, only a few times in their life and maybe only via voting. And if there's already sort of a lack of faith in institutions or a feeling that those are old fashioned or not serving their needs, I just wonder about the resonance of an object that feels really old to them. And I wonder if that came up in any of your testing. Like if they were having an opposite experience of not being able to resonate because it felt
clunky's not the right word, but
Hmm?
old-fashioned. And then my second question is related to your last point there about potential facial ID. I wonder where sort of other countries around the world, Somaliland, Ghana, Kenya, etc., are using iris scans or fingerprints. Like, why isn't that a feasible option here in the US? Thank you.
I'm so glad she asked that. So, all right, I forgot to comment on that. To answer your first question, it's a simple no, because voting only happens so infrequently and they don't even remember how they voted the previous time. As long as they could generate their ballot, and again, it's like, duh. And the only comments I got is like, this is for older people. But they did it. As far as the iris and fingerprint, those would potentially work technically. But again, from a psychological, sociological perspective, they are not a possibility. Reason being, fingerprint. What are fingerprints associated with? Criminals. In the United States, that is a negative connotation. Iris, people don't want to give iris because they feel it's permanent. I can never change my iris, or you got me permanently. It's a I'm serious. We actually tested it. This is psychological and working with Damon on this. Iris and fingerprints are the biggest hurdle because of the negative association with fingerprints and iris, the permanency of it, the thought of it. Facial recognition seems to be more acceptable because your face is exposed. I don't hide my face for the most part. My iris, I'm not hiding it, but technically you can't get to my iris is what I'm not saying this is true. I'm just giving you the perception of why these things won't happen. So a lot of these things won't happen. It's not because of technical issues. It is these other things. Okay.
Well, let's thank Juan again for the answer.
Thank you.